People often think of Europe as a quiet, civilized continent where nature has long been tamed. But hidden among its forests, mountains, and wetlands is a surprising truth. Wildness still thrives here. From the oldest feral species on Earth to animals brought back from extinction, and even Asian giants reintroduced to fill the roles of long-lost ancestors. Europe's wildlife is far from boring. In this video, we'll explore all the megafauna still roaming free across Europe today, both native and reintroduced. And just so we're clear, when we say megafauna, we mean any animal weighing over 46 kilograms or 100 pounds. Our journey begins with the goat and sheep family, animals built for the cliffs, the cold, and the toughest environments on Earth. And believe it or not, Europe is home to the largest member of this group, the mighty muskox. Despite its name and shaggy appearance, the muskox isn't an ox at all. It actually belongs to the goat family. Thousands of years ago, muskoxen roamed across the frozen plains of northern Europe, but they vanished at least 7,000 years ago. Fortunately, in the 1940s, a small group was reintroduced to Norway. Against all odds, they survived, and today, around 200 to 300 muskoxen still wander those icy valleys, even spreading into Sweden. All of them are descendants of just 11 animals brought there decades ago. High up in Europe's rugged mountains live two of its most iconic wild goats, the alpine ibex of the towering Alps and the Iberian ibex from the rocky hills of Spain and Portugal. These incredible climbers can scale sheer cliffs with ease, defying gravity in places where no predator dares to follow. Across the continent, you'll also find countless herds of feral goats, descendants of domestic animals that escaped farms and learned to survive on their own. Ireland, for example, is dotted with wild goat herds that have become part of its rugged landscape. A feral animal, by definition, is one that was once tamed by humans but has returned to a life of freedom, like the wild mustangs of America. Europe's smallest wild goat is the chamois, a nimble and graceful creature of the mountains. You may have seen dramatic videos of golden eagles attacking them. It's a harsh reminder of the balance of nature that still plays out in Europe's highlands. Interestingly, Europe has no truly native species of sheep, but two species now live wild across the continent. The first is the Barbary sheep, a North African native that escaped from hunting reserves in Spain and has built wild breeding populations there. The second is the European mouflon, found across mainland Europe today. For years, people believed they were a natural species from the islands of Corsica and Sardinia, but scientists later discovered they are actually the world's oldest feral animals. Primitive sheep brought to those islands about 7,000 years ago by early humans. That makes the mouflon a living link to humanity's first steps in animal domestication, a creature that began as livestock but ended up reclaiming its wild roots. Now we move on to Europe's true giants, the wild bovines. Three powerful species roam the continent today: the European bison, feral cattle descended from the ancient aurochs, and the water buffalo. But not long ago, none of these animals existed in the wild here. Just a century ago, Europe had lost all its wild cattle. The European bison, or wisent, went completely extinct in the wild in 1927. Only about 50 individuals survived in captivity. Two German zoologists, brothers Lutz and Heinz Heck, took on the mission to save the species. They started a breeding program using just 12 genetically healthy bison, and in 1952, the first animals were released into the Białowieża forest in Poland. Today, thanks to that effort, more than 8,500 European bison exist, over 6,000 of them living wild once again. The Heck brothers didn't stop there. They also attempted to bring back the aurochs, the huge wild ancestor of modern cattle, extinct for nearly 400 years. By selectively breeding primitive cattle breeds from around Europe, they created what they called Heck cattle. They claimed it was the world's first de-extinct animal reintroduction. Although their creation wasn't a perfect match for the true aurochs, these hardy animals are now used across Europe in rewilding projects to fill the ecological role their ancestors once held. But perhaps the most fascinating story comes from a forbidden place, the Chernobyl exclusion zone. There, a small herd of feral cattle has survived completely on its own. Descended from domestic dairy cows, they've learned to cope with radiation, harsh winters, wolves, and bears, and their population has grown from just 7 individuals to about 20. A small number, yes, but proof of incredible resilience. Europe once had its own species of water buffalo, but Bubulus morensis went extinct around 12,800 years ago. For thousands of years, wetlands that once thrived with these massive grazers were left largely untended. Thanks to rewilding efforts, Europe has brought water buffalo back to the wild, in particular the Danube Delta. Starting in 2019, domestic Asian water buffalo were released as proxies for their extinct European cousins. The herds have been breeding successfully and helping to restore the natural biodiversity of the wetlands, trampling invasive plants, dispersing seeds, and shaping the landscape just like their ancestors once did. This project shows how carefully planned reintroductions can restore not just a species, but an entire ecosystem. Where once the wetlands were quiet and empty, life is returning, and the buffalo are leading the charge. Europe is home to a variety of deer, from towering moose to delicate roe deer. But not all of them are truly native. Some, like the white-tailed deer, come from North America, introduced as game species, and today they thrive in places like Finland. Another non-native species is the sika deer, now one of the most widely spread invasive deer in Europe. Native European deer include roe deer, red deer, moose, or elk in UK English, and reindeer in the far north. Interestingly, reindeer now share habitats with reintroduced muskoxen in Norway. Despite initial fears that they might compete for food, it seems each species prefers different plants, allowing them to coexist. Fallow deer are an interesting case. Though native to Asia Minor, they were present across Europe during the Pleistocene. In a sense, reintroducing them today is not just a restoration, but also a proxy for their extinct giant cousin, the megaloceros, the Irish elk, that vanished around 8,000 years ago. Fallow deer, like megaloceros, prefer grasses and herbs, making them key to the European grassland ecosystem. Europe's deer are not just beautiful to watch, they are crucial ecosystem engineers. Through grazing, seed dispersal, and soil disturbance, they shape forests and grasslands alike, helping maintain the natural balance that countless other species rely on. One of Europe's most important keystone species is the wild boar. Though they have a notorious reputation in places like America and Australia, where they are invasive, in Europe they play a vital role. By rooting in the soil, dispersing seeds, and shaping habitats, wild boars help maintain forests and wetlands, making life possible for countless other species. Europe's predators are just as impressive. Gray wolves and brown bears roam many forests, while polar bears survive on the Norwegian island of Svalbard alongside the world's smallest reindeer subspecies, the adorable Svalbard reindeer. Other predators, like wolverines and Eurasian lynx, sometimes hunt megafauna. Lynx have even been observed preying on calves and adults of nearly every European deer species. Europe also hosts one of the continent's largest birds, the great bustard. While not a megafauna predator, these giant birds are a reminder of Europe's diversity. In some rare cases, escaped South American rheas or giant ostriches have established small populations in Germany, once numbering over 500 before population control efforts reduced them to fewer than 100. Europe is home to several feral horse herds, each with its own story. In the UK, the Exmoor ponies roam heathlands, while France is home to the famous Camargue horses. These animals are resilient survivors, descended from domestic stock but now living wild. True wild horses, like the Przewalski's horse, have also been reintroduced in Europe. Rewilding Europe has released them in Spain and even in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, a unique sanctuary full of megafauna and large predators. The first herd of 31 horses has steadily grown, reaching around 150 by 2018, and continues to expand. Wild asses from Asia have also returned to Europe, serving as proxies for extinct European relatives. Rewilding Europe introduced a herd of 20 to the Danube Delta in 2020, followed by another 20 in 2022. Plans are underway to bring them to Iberia, continuing the continent's ongoing journey to restore its lost wild heritage. Thanks to decades of rewilding efforts, Europe has witnessed an incredible resurgence of megafauna. Wild boars, wolves, bears, bison, lynx, and beavers are thriving like never before. At the same time, wild horses, Feral cattle, water buffalo, and wild asses are reclaiming landscapes that had been empty for centuries. Europe's story shows that even in heavily populated and developed continents, nature can rebound. Carefully planned reintroductions, habitat restoration, and sustainable human support can bring back species that were once lost. The continent is slowly becoming wilder again, a living laboratory where humans and nature work together to heal the land. Are there other megafauna or predators living wild in Europe today that we haven't mentioned? If you know of any, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear about them. And if you enjoyed this journey through Europe's wild heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to help more people discover the continent's remarkable wildlife.